of cannabis in my life, but yeah, no, I mean, and mushrooms a couple times, but not in the same way or with the same intentions or the same mindset that I did ayahuasca and Wachuma.
Yeah, right. Same here. And I think even if I had a little bit more experience, I still don't think it prepares you for that. And even having 11 ceremonies under my belt now, I still get jitters when I hear of a ceremony popping up or I sign up for one, and it's like you're going through it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, you go in with less. I went in with less expectations, but my ayahuasca experience was, I don't know if underwhelming is the right term, but that was basically what it was. It was underwhelming. I really didn't. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but mine was not a visual experience. All my healing from the plant medicines really happened internally and without any external signs. No visions, no. When I take Wachuma, it's a little bit different. But with ayahuasca, I really felt like I got the brain reset. When your computer glitches so hard, you got to hit that reset button. I sort of feel like that's what ayahuasca did, but without, I don't know, the neurobiology of it all is, I hate to make claims that are a little far out, but I mean, I think from what we've seen in like fMRI scans, it just helps open up pathways that allow you to, make decisions differently, and it gives you the chance to rethink almost everything you're doing. I think it kind of held up a mirror to me in a lot of ways. But I guess that's what self-reflection always is, and yeah, I mean, it took me out. I did 5 ceremonies, and then I just didn't think it was working. And luckily, I went to one of the world's most honorable, respectable, kind, thoughtful curanderos in Peru, named Don Howard Lawler, and he introduced me to Wachuma, which was really the medicine that just re-sparked my spark in life. And really, I mean, and it wasn't while I was there that I got all the benefits. It was leaving Peru, coming home for a day, and flying out to PWG Battle of Los Angeles and wrestling Chris Hero. That's where I got my love for wrestling back. That's where I remembered who I was. I could remember the feeling when I was in Peru, and I was under the influence of Wachuma during the full-on ceremony. I remembered this time in my life when I was 17 years old, and I was leaving wrestling training. I had probably only been training for 2 or 3 weeks, and I just went ahead and did a bunch of moves that I hadn't been trained, but I knew to do. And when I left wrestling training that night, I just was on top of the world, and it was just a really pure feeling. And I reconnected to that in Peru, and then when I went home, I found it again, wrestling Hero, wrestling at the Battle of Los Angeles, and then there was this 10-man tag where the guys did a bunch of touch butt. There was like a conga line, there was guys. I mean, it was just a goofy, fun match, but it was all the things that are cool about pro wrestling. The fun parts of it. And I just remember that, oh yeah, this could be a really fun thing to do, and these are all my friends, and I really got it was a great recharge for me. Something that I don't think I could have gotten without taking the time, making the effort, and I don't know what to call a sacrifice, but you really have to commit to this, to a trip down to Peru, which means you're working on yourself before you go there, and then you're working on yourself while you're there, and hopefully you remember to work on yourself when you get home. Those would be the 3 very important elements to it.
Yeah, I think that's one heck of a re-immersion for you, coming off the plane from Peru and then hopping right back into a match.
Yeah, I mean, I literally stayed until the last possible day where I could make it back, and where I could make it back to the U.S. and still make the Battle of Los Angeles. Because originally I was coming back like a week or 2 before it, so I would have time to relax and integrate. But I wanted to stay and do Wachuma, and the calling was there, and that was, I don't want to call it the greatest decision I've made, because who really makes the decisions? It's just, I really paid attention to the signs, and
you listened to the universe.
Got to where I was trying to go. Yeah.
Did you do ayahuasca with Don Howard as well, or was it 2 separate?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Now, before you went down there, were you kind of over wrestling at that period in your life?
No, I wasn't over wrestling by any means. I just had, I didn't dig the the product that I was working with, it really wasn't that great anyway. And I was just really hurt. Like, I had a hurt foot, I had a hurt shoulder. I was just bummed out, and I was sort of looking to open up a wrestling school / XYZ, whether it was flotation, sensory deprivation tanks, yoga. I was just thinking about taking on a business venture like a regular human who doesn't travel all the time and this, that, and where I would just have like a more civilian life than the crazy wrestler world. But the cards were not in my favor for that, and my gut was just like, yo, we got to keep wrestling. It's just who I am. You can't fight who you are, and I just have to get in the ring. Like, for me, that's therapy. I need to. Plants can be medicine, but getting in the ring for me is really what brings me back to who I am in my true nature, which is what the plant medicine kind of helps you find who you are. But then it's up to you to stay with it. And honestly, it wasn't until I fully realized, like, hey, I got to commit. I had to just recommit to wrestling to be happy, because when you're halfway in something, you're kind of also halfway out, and it puts you in a position where you feel like you can't put 100% of your efforts into that because you don't really want to be doing it. And so, yeah, I just kind of reset, and a couple times whenever I get injured, I do kind of worry about losing my drive for it. But just last time I dislocated my shoulder, I cut this great promo, and I was okay with not being able to come back from wrestling, not being able to come back because I've done everything I want to do. But like I said, if there is a possibility of recovery, you'll find me in the ring. And that's just what I've done. It's taken a year or so, and then I had a knee injury, and I just worked my way back from that. And this year's been a challenge because I left Impact. I left my contract at Impact in January, but also needed knee surgery in January, which took me about 8 months to recover from. So it's just 8 months, no pay, no nothing, nothing going on. I mean, outside of my school, but even then my ability to teach was limited. I had to have an assistant teacher, and that's sort of the overarching theme of my career, which is perseverance. They're not expected of someone to do what they're doing, and I just managed to go and do it, but not just by biting my teeth and do it. I just try and go step by step when I'm rebuilding. And luckily, wrestling. If I was an MMA fighter, my career would be long since eclipsed. However, I'm a part of the greatest form of entertainment in the universe, and I would love to have another 10 years doing it.
Now, during those periods of time where you're inactive because you're injured, how do you keep yourself sane? What do you do to balance not being able to go in the ring? Because that seems like it's an outlet for you. What is your outlet now when you're injured and you can't go in the ring?
Yeah, well, I've never claimed to be sane. I don't know. I definitely don't have any answers, because when I'm hurting and I'm not feeling like myself, it can be challenging to be around me. You can really lose, a lot of my sense of self is tied to my physical abilities. Like, my ability to move like a ninja used to be how I defined myself. But basically, after I broke my foot, I mangled my foot in a motorcycle accident. And it was at that point, and kind of when I went down to Peru, was the time I realized, boy, I better stop associating myself with my body. Otherwise, I'm going to be very disappointed as we go on for the next, hopefully, 80 or 90 or 120 years. Whatever it is, it's just the more I consider who I am, my body, the less happy I'm going to be, because it continues to not fail me, but it can't do the same things it used to do, and I have to just adjust. And really, it has made my wrestling game so much better, because the cerebrality of my approach to the ring has completely changed, and I really feel like I'm doing my best work. I would step back if I didn't think I was doing it, but I really feel like I am at the top of my game, and hopefully I can keep my body maintaining this with a smart schedule and working good opponents, and just kind of keep using the opportunities to wrestle as opportunities to give back to people in this field. a lot of the way I learned, I told you I went to a wrestling school, but it wasn't really a wrestling school. It's just some guys who said they knew how to wrestle, but also had a ring, and just charged me basically the same price I charge people to train nowadays, which is insane. However, what happened, the reason I started to really learn wrestling was when older wrestlers or veterans would give back by wrestling me, by watching my matches, by helping me, by criticizing me, by yelling at me, all those things. And so now for me, as much as I enjoy performing and being in high-pressure situations, I don't necessarily need accolades. What makes me more satisfied is helping out and being a part of moving the wrestling industry in the right direction, whether it's locker room activity, locker room behavior, in-ring stuff, or just, in general, being there as a person younger wrestlers can go to ask questions.
Touching on you talking about being a coach, what is your philosophy in your school, how you teach wrestlers, and how you go about that?
Oh, I mean, you could call me Mr. Miyagi if you'd like. No, for me, the approach to wrestling is I take a very Japanese approach, but the Japanese approach that I learned came from Mexico. So it's a very combinatory style of what I try and teach is something that'll work that you'll be able to use in every locker room across the world. But it really does begin with taking care of the gym. We get there, we sweep, we mop, we do all the little things, and then we get in there and we pray to the wrestling gods. But if you don't work for it, if you don't earn it, then you never enjoy it. And, we would just try and keep things, I take it very seriously, but I try not to take myself too seriously. If I have students that like to have fun during class, I ask those ones to be quiet. The ones that are quiet during class, I ask them to be louder. We work on every aspect of it, but I really believe in an individual approach to training because everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. However, I do ask when it comes to physical activities, I really do ask, the same thing of everyone, and I hope that pushes people out of their comfort zone. And I think that's sort of my job as a coach, to mainly focus on the things that people aren't good at, because you always, if a guy at the gym has a big chest, he's always at the gym working chest. He doesn't need me to tell him do a chest press. They need me to, the guys that are the best wrestlers in my class, those are the guys that do promo class the most often. The ones that tell you they're good talkers, those are the ones you'll see me making sweat in the ring and run and run and run. I mean, that's just a good approach to teaching, and I do believe that the Japanese approach is good, which is just becoming so physically tough that you can do things ordinary people can't. You can do those things daily without being hurt or hardly even having a mark. Whereas, we in Japan, sometimes after the show, you'll go out to a meal with the local townsperson or somebody who is a sponsor of the event, and sometimes these events will devolve into chopping fans and kind of real fun, more like a party than dinner. And sometimes there's the fans ask to be chopped, and a wrestler will give them a chop, and the one chop and their chest starts just bleeding immediately, bright red handprint and blood coming out. If you're a Japanese wrestler, you can get chopped 20 or 30 times and you hardly turn red. That's because we train hard. When my brother was in the Drag Gate dojo, he would be doing a neck bridge, which is like a back bend, but you only use your head and not your hands. So, you're basically posting on your head and your 2 feet. And then they would sit on his stomach, putting that extra weight on him. That's kind of how dedicated they are to training hard and separating themselves from other people just through your dedication and the hours you put in. Because everybody starts out, regular. I mean, for me, if you want to join the professional wrestling, becoming an amateur wrestler is the best approach because you're halfway there in terms of your physical conditioning and your body awareness and your movement. That's why guys who do jiu-jitsu, the Kyle O'Reillys, Bobby Fish, Muay Thai, I mean, the guys who can do other things are also make great wrestlers. But I really believe that